we went to my father's family line, who were still in the fire. They were isolated individuals in anguish of soul. They weren't partying it up. They were in anguish of soul. Now, they weren't being punished. We weren't talking about real flames burning them. We're talking about the presence of God's consuming fiery love. But they had not responded to that fiery love. Why? Well, maybe no one had preached to them. I don't know. Or maybe he was waiting for me to come and preach to them. I don't know. But I was there with Jesus, not knowing what to do. And he gave me this trumpet. So I thought, well, should I blow it? What am I supposed to do here? But I decided, well, I'm going to preach the good news. Now, I don't think I did it very well. I was somewhat overwhelmed, and I was feeling for these people. I was feeling their pain and anguish, their lostness, and they were my generation. I didn't know any of them because I didn't really know much beyond my grandfather, but I was overwhelmed, but I wanted to share the love of God, even though I was totally unprepared. So I shared a pretty sort of simple message. And as I was standing there, Jesus turned to walk out, and I followed him out. I thought, well, I'm not staying here on my own, but I blew the trumpet in hope more than expectation, went through the door on Wisdom's Heights. And as I went through the door from that side, it looked like a fiery sword. On the other side, it looked like a fiery door. So I went through the fiery sword. And as we went through and turned, we looked back and we saw some souls had followed us to the door, sword. And as they approached, I saw them kneel. And each one of them kneeled. I heard them confess Jesus as Lord. And they walked out, went through the gates. And I know now that the Father's waiting for them inside those gates that never shut, and embraces them and welcomes them into relationship. So I said to Jesus, having seen this and done it, I'm in trouble now. How do I explain this? Well, Jesus simply said, well, just tell people that you're doing what I did, and I told you to do what I did. And I've given you the verses that said he went and preached to people and spirits in prison and preached the good news to them. So I was only doing what Jesus did. And I believe we should do everything that he did and greater. Now, not many of them followed us out. I don't know, 300, 400, 500 people. I don't know. But I asked Jesus why they didn't all come out, because I would have thought I would have wanted to be out there. And if I saw some going out, I would have gone. But it's not like you can sort of see everyone else, I don't think. I think it's almost you're there in isolation. You haven't got no comfort from anybody else. So maybe they didn't even see those who followed us because they couldn't. They were just looking at themselves. And Jesus said this, son, you can only preach with the authority to the degree that the fire has consumed generational things in you. That's not why not everyone responded. Let me say that again. Son, you can only preach with authority to the degree that the fire has consumed generational things in you. So we need the fire to deal with generational things in us to give us the authority to preach. Keep presenting yourself to the fire of the altar, and you will be able to reach more of your generational lines. As you embrace the coals, the touch areas of your life that have come from your generations, that will give you authority. Now, remember Isaiah in Isaiah 6, when he said, well, I'm a man of unclean lips from a people of unclean lips, or generations of unclean lips. So the coal touched his lips, purified his lips. Then he said, well, here am I, send me. So there's something about engaging the altar as a living sacrifice, which can purify our hearts and lives, that gives us greater authority. So I decided to present myself on that altar in the temple every day, engage the fire day after day after day, just simply going for anything which is a hindrance to my generational lines, all four of them. Now, I've been back since to all four of my generational lines, preached many, many times in many different ways, and learned to do it in the way that related to people that needed it. And I've seen many, many respond. Now, there was a specific incident. I was in China, and I woke up 3 a.m. in the morning, and I felt a strong desire to engage the altar and asked for the fiery coals to touch a specific area of behavior in my generations. As I was experiencing the fire, I began forgiving each of my 4 generational lines for participating in that behavior. Once I finished, I went into the fiery place again, and I preached to all my generational lines with boldness, blew the silver trumpet, and many, many more responded, who were then free from that area that they were in bondage to. Another occasion, it was on a Sunday morning in a time of worship. I was embracing the fire in another area surfaced, and again I went back, preached with renewed boldness, and many more responded. Now I've preached to brokenness and fragmentation. I've taken communion there and welcomed people back into communion with Christ, so they're fragmented parts. You know, if you're fragmented in soul or dissociated before you go into that fiery place, you don't suddenly get fixed. You go in there in multiple bits. So you need to become reintegrated so you can come to the knowledge of the truth and receive Jesus. So I preached to a reintegration. I preached to dissociated people in different ways. Now, my desire when I wrote this was to empty that place completely. And I need to embrace the fire myself to do that. And I've done that now over the last 5 or 6 years until I can find anyone else to preach to in my generations.